Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Kyle's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. If you'd like to take us with you as you travel, the listen line, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. I'm delighted to be broadcasting with your newest instructor. And for those of you new to the class, there are over 200 of us here at USA Prepares. Experts in various areas. All of us are innovators. We're dentists, medical doctors, broadcasters, CEOs, surgeons, engineers, researchers, authors, editors, programmers, inventors, and we're also students rising to become instructors. None of us is capable of holding down a job. And I'm delighted to introduce your newest instructor, Dr. K. Randall-May. Now, she is a professional intuitive, consultant with a master's degree and doctoral degrees in entomology from the University of California, Berkeley. She's known worldwide, and she is a friend of Dr. Norman Shealy's. What I'm going to do is tell you a little story as soon as you hear her voice. Welcome, Dr. K. Randall-May.
Hello, Vincent. Thank you so much for having me here on your program, and it's a pleasure to meet those who are listening and all of those who will listen in the future.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being with us. And I wanted to share a story about, how we met. I heard of you, and we talked about you coming on the air, and one day and we hadn't done it yet. And what happened was my health took a turn for the worse, and I was unable to broadcast for a couple of weeks. I was in Dr. Norman Shealy's office, and he was taking good medical care of me, along with his business and medical partner, Dr. Sergey Sorin, who is an ER doctor. And I was in Dr. Shealy's office, and he said, would it be okay with you if I got another opinion? And I said yes. And what had happened was my medical team, my primary care physician, thought that I had lung cancer. My pulmonologist thought I had lung cancer. I was coughing up blood, and I was really, really sick. I was knocking on death's door. I'm not exaggerating. Dr. Shealy wanted to do a biopsy of my lung, and Dr. Shealy said, well, hold it, wait a minute. And I'm paraphrasing. He said that, if we do a biopsy, if it is cancer, it will spread, and it'll take you down faster. Dr. Sergey Sorin agreed, but yet the medical team wanted to do that biopsy. Dr. Shealy said, get a CA-125 test. It's a cancer test that is accurate 75% at 75% level for men in lung cancer and colon cancer and a couple other cancers, pancreatic cancer. He said, do that first. And the medical team was furious with me, not Dr. Shealy, not Dr. Sergey Sorin, but the part of the medical team that scheduled the CAT scan with the biopsy. They were furious because they scheduled it, and I said, I want to postpone it until after this test. Well, they told me I wasn't taking medical advice. I wasn't following medical advice. And I said, well, actually, I am following medical advice. I'm getting advice from Dr. Bill Deagle. I'm getting advice from Dr. Sergey Sorin. I'm getting medical advice from Dr. Norman Shealy. And I'm following medical advice. I'm being very careful. Dr. Shealy at that point in his office said, I'd like to make a phone call with your permission to Dr. K. Randall-May. And I said, that'd be wonderful. And he called you up right then and there. He left the room where I was, ran into his office, called you up, and he got your medical intuitive opinion. And your medical intuitive opinion said I did not have cancer. I had a massive scarring in my lungs, and that's what he reported to me. And it was treatable. But it didn't appear to be. It really, I was coughing up so much blood that it didn't look like I was going to survive like more than a couple of weeks. That was what you said, Dr. May. Would you like to share anything about that phone call with Dr. Shealy? You have my permission.
Actually, no, what I would like to share is that in this process that is called medical intuition, essentially what I do is I connect with another person with their permission, always with their permission, and looking intuitively using what's called high sense perception, also called remote viewing, clairvoyance. And I'm able to see in great detail in my mind's eye, that which is going on. Now, as you mentioned, my training is in biology originally. However, I've been working in the field of intuition since I was a small child, having been raised here in Phoenix with a family where intuition was nurtured and given permission from the time I was a small child to be able to use these inner abilities, which I feel are quite normal and very universal. I think everyone can connect with these abilities with proper training and focus and motivation. I don't remember the details of the call because I put such things aside. In other words, I don't hold on to those details. I can just remember giving whatever impressions I had at the time as clearly as I could to Dr. Shealy. It's not infrequent or unknown that Dr. Shealy will call me and ask about a particular patient that he has in his presence. And the particularly interesting thing about this whole phenomenon called medical intuition, clairvoyance, remote viewing, is that I don't have to be right there. But I only work with physicians and with patients who are realizing that I myself am not a physician, because sometimes I see something and I don't know what to do about it. I can take what I see, but I don't necessarily know what to do with it. So my preference is to work with physicians such as Dr. Shealy, who would then follow through with the best of their knowledge and expertise to devise a treatment program. And I'm so glad, Vincent, that it's worked out well for you.
It absolutely has. I'm on the mend, and I feel so much better. I mean, I was literally down to 5% of me, and I'm probably getting close to 70% now. And I've been, every day it's like another portion of a percent that I'm improving. So as a farmer, it was not pleasant being in the position I'm in, or was in, and that was not being able to do much. I look at some job titles like a manager. To me, a manager is someone who leads by example, someone who rolls his or her sleeves up and does the job and knows how to do the job and is willing to do the job, even side by side with the rest of the team. An administrator, to me, is someone who really doesn't know how to do the job, someone who tells people do the job without really knowing much about the job and is not capable of rolling up his or her sleeves and doing the job. And I look at government employees as, when you get to the highest level of incompetence, the Peter Principle, and you can become an administrator. An administrator in the government. And here's why I'm saying this. Because I went from a manager on the farm, being on the tractor and doing all fencing and the kind of thing, hard labor after the broadcasts every day, to becoming an administrator. Saying, hey, we need to do this, this, and this. And the most I could do was just point and say, that's what needs to be done, but I couldn't do it. And it was not pleasant. And the reassuring news that I got from Dr. Shealy's phone call with you, seconds after he hung up with you, was just a wonderful feeling. And you were right. So about what you felt, saw, and perceived regarding my health. And that's why we're on the air.
And the other part of it, Vincent, is that you followed through with your doctor's best advice and continue to eat properly and take care of yourself. There's no magic bullet for our health care. It's very important for each and every person to take responsibility for our lifestyle, for the choices of our food and our life habits, and not to necessarily do those things which might be toxic or destructive to our body. And in that process, then we can build our health up. So I'm just so pleased that you have done so. I wanted to point out to you, you and I were supposed to talk, about a month ago. We were scheduled to talk. And then I received the news that you weren't well enough. Didn't you wonder why I called back to check on you when I did? I had been just lightly checking in with you intuitively to see if your strength was up to the place where you were ready to resume, and I always felt, not quite yet. Timing isn't quite right. So this process called intuition is a process where we can improve our timing. And timing is everything, isn't it, in life? And eventually I got to the point where one day I thought, Vincent feels much better, much stronger. And that was when I called again and spoke with your wife and you and said, by the way, might I come on the program? And then you followed through. So it was a matter of just lightly touching in and using intuition.
And your timing was absolutely perfect. It really was. And that's why we're on the air. We're talking about this. Now, I've heard of remote viewing. I've listened to Art Bell, and he's had some experts on as well. And I've been fascinated by it. But here we are. We're talking about it. We'll talk a little bit more about it for the rest of this hour with Dr. K. Randall-May. Class, Dr. K. Randall-May is with us. And Dr. May, I want to share this with you. So you said to Dr. Shealy that I did not have cancer. Mrs. Finelli, that's how I refer to my wife on the air, said I did not have cancer. Dr. Bill Deagle, on the phone with me, medical doctor in California, said I do not have cancer or did not have cancer. And all were emphatic that I did not have cancer. However, the evidence that was, the medical evidence sure looked like it, that my primary care physician had in front of her and the pulmonologist and the radiologist and so forth. So my wife was absolutely emphatic that absolutely I did not have cancer. And she wasn't just saying that to make me feel better. She was emphatic. And so my question is, after it was found that, with all the tests that I did not have it, and the pulmonologist said, yep, you're right, you're right, you don't have it. Is it that my wife and Dr. Bill Deagle and you have this intuitive sense? Is that what it is? How did this happen?
Well, let's talk a bit about the nature of reality, Vincent. I think this is essential to understanding because many people have a feeling from cultural tradition that intuition is something that only a very few people have. It's a gift and all of that. Well, we are gifted, of course, with the ability to think, and I'm grateful every day for my ability to communicate, etc. However, I believe that this is a universal ability, and those of us who connect well with others, whomever that may be, the insights may be clearer and stronger. So someone such as your wife, who undoubtedly is very sensitive and attuned to our own body and also to you, would have a great deal of clarity. And of course, I work at this every day on a routine basis. But I'd like to mention just a little bit about the physics of the world. I feel that physics is the area that is so lacking in our understanding of awareness, consciousness, the world, etc. All matter actually has a phase of its existence in which it is clearly material, like we have a physical brain. It's clearly an organ, and if something goes wrong with that organ, we're going to have a lot of problems. However, all matter has another dimensional existence as pure energy. And matter is fluctuating back from pure energy, that dimension, to the third dimension of pure physicality at billions of seconds a time. In other words, billions of times a second. It's like, it's going that way, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. As matter is purely physical, we are separate. I am here sitting in Phoenix, and you are where you are, and we're separate. However, in the dimensionality of pure energy, we are one. And this is where the mystics over the ages have been so true. They're really right on. We are one. So what happens with the training that I go through and what I help my students with here in Phoenix when they take my intuitive pathway class and when I teach through Holos University and other places, I'm teaching people to tune into and bring forth from the other dimensions the insights which can be translated into their physical thinking processes, because that's where the actual transition occurs. That's where we can, any of us with proper training, can attune to what could be called universal consciousness, or the mind that we all share. That's the type of work I do all the time on a scientific basis. I work with several colleagues, both in this country and elsewhere, to bring forth information about inventions and things and practical applications, as well as the basic understanding of physics. I mention a lot of this in my book, Inner Visions of Matter and Subtle Energy. But this is really important in order to understand your particular question.
When we come back, will you tell us specifically how we can get in touch with you and which of your websites you recommend that we go to first? Dr. K. Randall-May is with us, PhD, medical intuitive. We'll be right back. That's Dr. K. Randall-May is with us. Dr. May, what's the best website to get in touch with you?
Actually, I have 3 websites, Vincent, but the easiest one is just my name, krandallmay.com, and it's CAYRANDALLMAY.com. And there you will also find my phone number, which is 602-404-8646. I only accept calls between 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening, Pacific time, or Phoenix, Arizona time, Monday through Saturday. But you can also reach me by email at crandallmay, PHX, for Phoenix, at AOL.com. So it's CRANDALLMAY, PHX, at AOL.com. You can also find a lot of information about my classes, upcoming classes, where I'll be teaching, for instance, this August, every Thursday night, through Holos University. And I would like you to know about Holos University. We teach many classes, including medical intuition, which I'll be teaching in the fall, a class devoted to developing those skills and how a person can align themselves to this profession if you would like to be a medical intuitive. What are some of the things about getting into this profession? And that's holosuniversity.org. Actually, be aware, it's best to sign up for those classes right away. In the August classes that I'm giving through Holos online every Thursday night from 6 to 7:30 Phoenix time, I'm teaching a class on intuitive self-care. That's something for everyone. And I really enjoy the focus of your program on being prepared, because developing a person's intuition, their awareness, their attunement, is one of the best things any of us can do to be prepared for the uncertainties of life. And it can be as simple as driving your car down the street and attuning to your own higher knowing, your own instincts, your gut feelings about whether that car ahead of you is going to change lanes maybe without even giving a signal, or are they going to abruptly make a U-turn, or is somebody going to come from here or there. I use it all the time. I mean, every day we use intuition, the types of skills that I teach, so that we can also pay attention to our own bodies and know whether we're out of sorts, how we might be able to seek further guidance or make some changes. That's the kind of thing that I teach in my intuitive self-care class. So be aware that there are a lot of classes I teach. Here in Phoenix, I teach the Intuitive Pathway, which is part of the Medical Intuition class, and it's a 6-day class in person in which we actually get to the place where we're doing medical intuition in class with volunteers that come into class. And that, of course, is through the Healing Arts Connection, and you can reach them at www.how2heal. So how, and then the number 2, and then heal.com. So I'm doing a lot of classes, a lot of interaction with students all the time, and also mentoring on an ongoing basis. But it's focused on how to be attuned, how to be aware, how to be sensitive to what's going on in the world. And believe me, there's a lot going on in the world right now, Vincent. And then in our everyday life, just in our sphere of influence around us, in our home, in our car. This is how to be in the right place at the right time.
One of our other instructors, a senior faculty member, is Dr. Richard Allen Miller. He has a PhD in physics. He's a physicist. And he talks about thinking with your lower brain, your gut. Is that attached to what you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
Are we thinking...
Mm-hmm. You see, I see the whole person as this energy field that we call the bioenergy field, the aura. And our aura, when it's in that non-physical dimension of our existence, is in total connection with everyone else around us and all other things around us. That information is getting through to us as disturbances, perturbations, very minute in some cases, but certainly distinct. And that can come through as gut sensations, actually little spasms and things that happen in our gut. People talk about getting a gut feeling. But I train people, and those who work with meditation and all the various other aspects of the training, which is our classic in getting clarity, we learn how to move them up higher in our consciousness so we can actually give words to them, how we can say, okay, I'm getting this feeling, and it feels like this, that, or the other. It reminds me of something that happened in the past. And certainly when we're talking about preparation, when we're talking about being aware of what's happening, you might find yourself, let's say you're living somewhere on a coastal area, and you might find that you're getting a strong impression that you and your family maybe need to take a little trip inland at a particular time. Maybe some weekend you think, we really need to get out of town this weekend. And that kind of information can be extraordinarily important to take you out of the coastal area before some major event might happen. So
interesting. Interesting you're saying this. Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday, I had met a man who was selling a piece of farm equipment that we needed here. And I was in I was able to pick it up as small equipment. I was able to pick it up with my car, not the truck. And I met this man in a parking lot of it was a Craigslist thing. I met him in the parking lot of a large store. And he was to my left with his pickup truck, and I was in the smaller car, midsize. And we had done the transaction, and I was about ready to pull out of the parking space. But his truck was blocking my left view. I could see fine to the right, but I looked left, looked right. Everything seemed fine. Something told me right then and there, delay pulling out for a few seconds. I delayed, and flying down this an area where cars would not normally travel was a big vehicle that would have collided with me, pulling out very slowly. What I'm saying is somebody was speeding recklessly, and I had this intuition, this gut feeling, hold it. And I did. And, wow, it worked. And I see these kinds of things in my life very often. I mean, almost daily, where I feel something is going to happen and prepare for it. I was in the truck with our son years ago, and it was hazy, it was drizzly, it was getting dark, and I started to slow down, and my son said, "What are you doing, Dad?" And it was a 55-mile-an-hour zone, 2-lane road, one coming, one going, and I said, "I don't feel comfortable. Something is going to happen up ahead." Well, the guy behind me decided that he had it with me, and he was not willing to do 45 and a 55, even though we couldn't see very well. So he passed me, and within a few seconds, he collided with a deer, flipped over, and ended up in the ditch on the other side of the road.
Right.
These kinds of things happen. Is this something that we all have?
It is something that we can attune to. So I call it getting your antennae out. You can give it any other kind of metaphor that you want. But in the process that I use to teach people how to be more intuitive, I suggest that they follow a 4-step protocol. The first one is setting intention. And you set your intention for 3 things: that you're going to be aware of the following: that which is important for you. In other words, that which is your business that you should know. You don't need to know all about all the trauma drama of everybody nearby. The second is that which you can do something about, and you can take action. And it's important that you do take action. And the third is what is in your highest good to know, or in the highest good of your clients, or your listeners, or your family. And so those are the criteria I use, because otherwise a person can become so open that they are overwhelmed by the many, 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 many intuitive impressions that they might have. So over my lifetime as an intuitive, as somebody who is just born with having a great deal of sensitivity, I have had to learn to set the dial, so to speak, on the receiver. But I can teach that to other people, and I share it with you now, and for your listeners, it's important to set that. And then it's a matter of relaxing and letting go and allowing other competing thoughts to just be stilled. And it is possible. Mindfulness is a practice that I strongly recommend for people, learning how to be in the moment, how to be calm and centered. And it's not easy, Vincent. And then, of course, if, let's say, we want to connect with a particular person or incident or factual event or something, I call that a target. That's the kind of thing I did on that call with Norm. You were the target, and even though I didn't know what you looked like or anything, I set my intention to attune to you, and you can train yourself to attune to a particular target. Then allow the impressions to come through. But you know what really does it, because I work a lot with healing as well as intuition, is agape love. Pure, unconditional love. That is the force that aligns and attunes and allows the events to be in the highest order. Now, that doesn't mean that occasionally something might not happen that is awful, and certainly that happens with just about everyone. But then we also have to realize that there must be something about that can be turned to a higher good. Maybe we wish that it hadn't happened, and certainly that would have been the best of outcomes had it not to happen. But if it has happened, and if any of your listeners who are listening know that there's some tragedy that's befallen them, some terrible loss, or some difficulty, some challenge, they can turn it to a higher good.
When we come back, can you share with us the well-balanced person staying healthy, and also some of your classes that we may want to participate in? Dr. K. Randall-May, PhD, is with us. Dr. May, when We were talking about medical intuition. You mentioned letting go. Dr. Norm Shealy talks about his favorite word, and that's detaching. Detaching. Is that what you're talking about?
It's a component of it. You asked Vincent about a description of a well-balanced person.
Yes.
And
yes.
I feel a good way of describing that concisely is someone who handles stress well at any age. And there are many strategies for handling stress and many stressors. These are unique to each one of us. Important strategies include relaxation and detachment, both emotional and other detachment. But I believe also connecting to joy is one of the most valuable assets that any of us can have, and that's different from happiness or delight. Happiness or delight is something which is transitory, and it's hard to keep filling it. For instance, if I were to come over to your house and hand you the keys to maybe a new Corvette or maybe a new beautiful tractor or something, you would be delighted, right?
Well,
but,
most people would.
But at any rate, it's that kind of thing.
I get the point.
It depends upon an external thing that must be said. But what I'm talking about is that joy that comes from being truly alive and truly in the moment and being expanded in your consciousness. And that is a goal for living. So to me, someone who handles stress well is someone who is living to their fullest capacity. Now, they might be 95 years old, or they might be 12 years old, but they might have different definitions of what they're doing in order to live, but they're still going to be fully alive and present. That's the type of thing I teach in my intuitive self-care class that I'm going to be doing in August. Now, this is 2017, you and I are talking, so it's not every August, just this 2017 August. And people can find out about my class by visiting holosuniversity.org and looking at the Intuit classes, which are online. It's only $120 for 6 hours of instruction every Thursday from 6 to 7:30 online. And we talk about how to do things like using our intuition to scope or view within ourselves. I do a scoping or viewing of myself numerous times during the day just to see what my internal organs are doing, and are they a little bit different than they were, 2 hours ago. It's important to constantly be aware and not to dwell on it like obsessively, but to be aware and alive to those changes that are happening all the time. And, by the way, the focus of your program is to be prepared. This will help you be aware also to the earth, what's happening to the earth beneath your feet, what is going on there, what is happening to what I call the global consciousness. You can feel before, like for instance, before 9/11, there was a lot of really strange energies there that I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know exactly what. There was this ominous feeling. So one can then delve deeper into what's happening. What is it? Is it something about me personally? Is it something that might be going to happen to my family? Is it something that's going to happen to the global situation? And I have to tell you, there's a lot of that going on right now. So
Yes.
If we detect something like that, then the issue is to find our foundation, whatever our spiritual or intellectual foundation that takes us away from stress, that which gives us inner peace, because that is what's going to allow us to have clarity. And clarity comes from not being off balance intuitively, physically, or any other way. We want to be like a martial artist with soft eyes, that is, we're noticing what's going on around us and able to focus, bring our attention, and take appropriate action.
Well put. Well put. Dr. K. Randall-May, I'm looking forward to having you back on the air with us for further discussion, more in-depth discussion of this intuition and helping us become more well-balanced and improving our ability to use our own intuition to our best advantage.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it. I look forward to being there.
Thank you so much, Dr. May. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. I'm delighted to be broadcasting again with Hartford VanDyke. And today we're going to talk about a huge lie that many of us may not know about. If you'd like to get to Hartford VanDyke's website, it's Four Corners Doctrine, fourcornersdoctrine.wordpress.com. There's a link on the website, USAPrepares.com. If you'd like to peruse it and learn more about what we're talking about today, it's there at USAPrepares.com. Welcome, Hartford.
Hello. Hello.
Great. It's great to hear your voice. Thank you for being with us today. Hartford, you and I had a conversation off the air about something that is near and dear to your family about World War II. A huge lie, a huge cover-up. Actually, I would say a scandal. Would you care to share that with us, please?
Well, I was born in 1940, June 4th, in the Hawaiian Islands. My father and his uncle were involved in the Pearl Harbor attack situation. I was 18 months old when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I was there. And so I didn't find out about the details of this situation until I was 27 years old. And I lived my life pretty much regularly up to that point. I was involved in electronic engineering. And I had, at one point, been in the Navy, but I did not understand the full impact of it. But my father's uncle, Gerald Mason VanDyke, is the man that sent the warning message from Pearl Harbor to the mainland December 4th, 1941. 3 days before the attack. He sent it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Hawaiian time, which means he arrived in Washington, D.C. Due to the global time difference at 7 o'clock in the evening. And the information was received by Rear Admiral Paulus Prince Powell, Naval Intelligence. And Powell went to the Department of Navy. That would be Frank Knox. And so anyway, he presented it to Knox and Forrestal, John Vincent Forrestal, who was the Undersecretary of the Navy. And they wanted to get the ships out of the Pearl Harbor and form a defense perimeter around the islands. And so anyway, Secretary of Navy Knox notified Stimson, Secretary of War Stimson, and Secretary of War Stimson notified President Roosevelt. And President Roosevelt came to them and set up quite a big argument with him that he was the commander-in-chief and he was going to run the matter, and they were not to pull ships out of the harbor. They were not to do any of those things. He was going to decide what was to be done. And they were not to report the message to Admiral Kimmel and General Short. And he saw the problem he had on his hands, 3 people that were very determined to get the message through. So he had them put under military guard, United States Marines, and held at gunpoint until after the Pearl Harbor attack was over. And there's been many things that happened after that, but that's how he put us into the war. And he had a man there stationed. He had sent this man to the Hawaiian Islands 9 months before the Pearl Harbor attack. His name was Lieutenant Colonel Clifford M. Andrew. And Andrew was given a notice by the president that he was to withhold any information about Japanese movements from the commanders, Admiral Kimmel and General Short. And so he had charge of the communication system at the Iolani Palace in Hawaii. Had quite a transmitting and receiving system up there. But anyway, it's a very short story. I mean, that's basically what happened. The details of it, I've got detailed writings on it and they are available. Anybody wants to have a copy of those can get mine. $5 postpaid will cover it. There's not much more to say about it, except if I went into all the details that were surrounding the attack and the other things that other people were doing. My father was a pot and pan salesman for wherever aluminum company in the Hawaiian Islands, and he went door to door selling his kitchenware, and I gave him access to the Japanese homes, and he just in that process he discovered. He would snoop a little, and he was able to discover where the radio transmitting and receiving station was for the Japanese in Hawaii, and he alerted his uncle to it. They knew about it before the attack. But what happened was that after the attack happened, they went out and did their arrests. And this one place they went into, they caught it. They caught the man. He had a list of all the agents on the island, and he was in the bathroom at that time when the uncle's team moved in on them. He was in the bathroom tearing up these sheets of rice paper that had all the names of the officers on the island, and he grabbed this stuff before it could go down the toilet, and then he set up a station where this rice paper puzzle could be reassembled. It was a room that was sealed, double doors, so there could be no draft. And the people who worked on the paperwork on this puzzle had to wear surgeon's masks because any breath of air would blow the chips all over the place. And so they reconstructed this list from rice paper. And it took about 6 months to do it, and then they went out and arrested all the officers, agents, and such of the Japanese. But that's something that happened after the attack. And my father had a couple of interesting experiences before the attack. My father knew it was going to happen before it happened. His uncle gave him the final information on it at 5 o'clock in the evening. He was coming out of a barber shop, and the uncle was coming out of a barber shop on Baratania Street, I think it was. And anyway, he told my father what was going on, and my father asked if he'd passed a message forward to the officers. And he said a message had been sent. And he swore my father to silence on the thing, but he said, don't ever tell anybody this. He says, we're going to be attacked on Sunday. He had it down that good. My father's uncle was versed in the Japanese language. He could speak it. He could write it. And his job was to oversee all of the publications and the Hawaiian newspapers and whatever else he could come up with to know what the Japanese activities were. And he knew their military behavior, their patterns of how they fought and how they attacked. So he was very accurately certain that they were going to attack either Sunday or Monday. There was also other signals coming through intelligence at that time. It had already been known that Japan had split its fleet in two at Japan and sent half of it down to the south, to the Dutch East Indies. That's where Shell Oil Company had its holdings. And they had sent the other one up toward the Aleutian Islands. And so they went up toward the Aleutian Islands and looped over and came down on Hawaii from the north. So they had some idea. There had been an agreement between Great Britain, the United States, and the Dutch called the ABCD agreement, that if the Japanese crossed certain lines of latitude and longitude, we would automatically be at war. And the American side of it, there was a embargo put on Japanese materials being shipped to Japan. The state of Washington was shipping spruce lumber to the Japanese, and they were building their aircraft out of spruce because of its strength. And that, in July of 1941, approximately, they cut off the supply of spruce to Japan, and Japan had to go somewhere else to get their wood. And the place they went was the Philippine Islands, or the Philippines, because the Philippines had mahogany. And mahogany is a very lightweight but very strong wood. So and Japan had its hands full. It was fighting a war against warfare against China. And there's a Japanese man a Japanese historian, Suburo Ienaga, who wrote a book, The Pacific War, 1931 to 1945, and he describes how the Chinese were treated by the Japanese. And so this is kind of information of what they did and how they lived and what their patterns were, was very well known to my father's uncle, Mason VanDyke. And at one point, Mason VanDyke made a trip down into the Pacific, went on board ship and studied the conditions that existed relative to the Japanese. And so it was in the family. I was given a book by my father's uncle, just as a sample of the types of books he had. And so anyway, that's basically the Pearl Harbor story. We knew about it beforehand, and the president knew about it beforehand, and he betrayed the people at Pearl Harbor.
When we come back, I'll share with you a very short story about what my dad told me, what he saw with his own eyes back in the 1930s. He was born in 1924. Hartford VanDyke's with us. Hartford VanDyke's with us. Class, Four Corners Doctrine, FOUR, cornersdoctrine.wordpress.com. Hartford, my dad was born in 1924. And when I was a young boy, he told me stories about World War II. And a lot of us young boys back then were interested in the war. You know, what happened, who did what. And he told me that he lived on the East Coast when he was growing up in the 1920s, 1930s. And he saw barge after barge after barge every day. Barges being loaded with scrap metal, all going to Japan. And he just said, what are they going to do with all this metal? I mean, he was aghast at the amount of material that was being shipped as scrap from the United States to Japan. And as we know, and as you mentioned, the Japanese Zero airplanes were made out of plywood. Our planes were made out of steel. Theirs were made out of plywood. And as you described, they used the wood, the spruce, and the mahogany to make those airplanes. So the lie is huge. Do we know why our government just does these kinds of things to us? Keeps us in the dark, confuses us, obfuscates, lies, cheats, steals. Why? Why not just tell us the truth all the time? Do we know why?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's financially important to them. The whole thing pivots on banking and money. If that wasn't there, it wouldn't happen. As they say, if you take the profit out of war, there'd be no war. So it's people making money in the back room and pushing everybody out front to make the machine work. It's really quite simple. We have a selective service system a person's forced to go into. I know there's a reason for it. A nation has to have a good military. That's understandable. But the selective service system, if you don't sign up for it, you're treated as if you're a draft evader. And you're threatened with imprisonment as a conscientious objector if you don't go into it. And for even those, though, that enlist, it's a blank check. When you go in there, they're going to use you the way they want to use you, whether you like it or not. And in other words, it's an open-ended, it's not really a contract, it's a mandatory situation. But under the commercial law, it creates a contract, a covenant contract. A covenant contract is a contract like marriage. Till death do us part. And they put this serviceman through this. Just a second. They put the serviceman through this type of a problem. But in the process, they create a contract that has a value after the person is discharged. And most veterans don't realize this, that it's payback time when they come back out of the service. And any type of damage that's been done to them, the government is supposed to support the repairs and make sure that the person is taken care of because he took care of the country. And so, but the military does not like overhead. They don't like to have to pay for something that's no longer giving them something direct service. When I was in the service, I met a man a radio man in the military, Navy, and he'd been in the service for nearly 30 years, and he was about to come to full retirement, and he happened to slip on board ship and went down the stairs from one deck to the other, and apparently he had a heart attack or something like that, perhaps. But what it was that he was in the hospital where I met him, and he said that he wanted to get some kind of an office job where he could sit. And just in the last 6 months or so of his retirement, and work at an office job instead of on board ship, they wouldn't let him have a job. And so what happened as a result of that? They crashed his retirement. They wouldn't pay his retirement benefit.
Hartford VanDyke's with us. We're talking about government and what happens. We'll be right back. Class, if you go to usaprepares.com, the top post on page 1 says Hartford VanDyke, website, contact information, learning center. If you click on that, it'll take you to a link to his website, and there you can learn. And if you choose to help Hartford VanDyke and click on the donate button, that's available to you as well. Hartford, you have been imprisoned. What happened?
Well, I didn't want my book published, How to Create Currencies for Local Communities. I had developed a method of helping the public get back in a financial position, cleaning up their courts, providing a source of money, and I had already taken on a case in Seattle. It developed into a multi-billion-dollar value, and I put currency on the street, about $6 billion worth of currency on the street, and it was for particular purposes, all of which were proper. But the money hadn't bothered them. They left me alone. There was no hot pursuit of any sort. I'd provided copies of my materials to the Secret Service and the FBI over a period of 5 years. There was no hot pursuit of any sort, but when I published the book, How to Create Currencies put it out to publish it, How to Create Currencies for Local Communities, it just took them just a couple of months to pull me into a court trial. It wasn't the money that made a problem for me. It was the book itself about how to do it. And the book was actually released to the public domain, and still apparently they didn't observe that. But about 3 years into my prison sentence, a man on the street discovered it and published my book on the street. As far as the trial goes, I was told before the trial that I wouldn't be allowed to defend myself, and that was done with a motion in limine. And when I got into the trial itself, the judge allowed the prosecuting attorney the opportunity to present his side, but when it came to me giving defense in the court, he stopped the trial at the halfway point and turned it over to the jury for a verdict. So there was no defense in the trial. It was just a slam down thing of just put him in jail. And in the closing statement of the court trial, the prosecuting attorney, the junior prosecuting attorney, stated basically that it was the board of directors of the Federal Reserve Corporation that had ordered the trial. They made that pretty clear. So that's about what happened. I spent the time in prison. I made good use of the time. But I was in 7 years and 4 months. When I came out, I made sure that book got published and that people understood that it's released to the public domain. That's on that 4-cd.com filing, the site. But also, I provide a copy of that book and several other things on a disc for $5 postpaid. So if people are interested in that, they can write to me. It's Post Office Box 831, Kettle Falls, Washington, 99141-0831. And my phone number is 509-738-3039. That's Post Office Box 831, Kettle Falls, Washington, 99141-0831, and then my phone number 509-738-3039. So that and several other pieces are available, and people can call me. My office hours are from 11 in the morning till 5 in the evening Pacific time, Monday through Friday. And I can steer people toward various sources on the internet. You can type in Hartford VanDyke in quotes, and Google or Yahoo search engines, and you'll come up with quite a bit of information that way. And then there's another site called Scanned Retina, SCANNED Retina, RETINA, ScannedRetina.com. And so those are the primary sources. There's several others, a lot of others. But anyway, go back to what it is you want here. What would you like to proceed on?
Well, I want to make sure that that we support your efforts. So I want to make sure that we got that information out. So, class, if you'd like that CD, P.O. Box 831, Kettle Falls, Washington, 99141-0831. Phone number, and this phone number is 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday, 509-738-3039. Hartford, can we talk about illegal taxes that have been imposed illegally? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, first off, if you're going to deal with the problems of the IRS, I don't want to cross your advertising here. I see you have a tax assistant company that's helping people.
That's right.
The fundamental way of dealing with the Internal Revenue Service is in general, your strategies are you either sting them or stink them. Those are the two basic strategies open to everybody in the field of law. You either sting them or you stink them. Sting them means you use their laws against them. Stink them means that you establish the fact that they're involved in a scandal. Sometimes you can accomplish both things at once. If you go to Revised Code of Washington, in their Chapter 60.68, you'll find RCW 60.68.045. It's called the Tax Lien Index. Duties of the county auditor. When a notice of such lien is recorded, the county auditor shall forthwith enter it on an alphabetical tax lien index to be provided by the Board of County Commissioners and so forth. What happens is this. The Internal Revenue Service does establish some liens, and the ones that they actually file are probably just Washington, D.C., against large institutions and large pieces of property. When it comes to the states, they have what's called the Uniform Federal Lien Registration Act. Every state has this put into their codes, their revised codes. The Uniform Federal Lien Registration Act. The IRS agent comes to the county recorder with a notice of tax lien. Now, you can't collect taxes with a notice of tax lien. A notice is not an adequate instrument to do it. But they bring a notice of tax lien, federal tax lien, to the county commissioner, to the county recorder. And that recorder is instructed to put it on a tax lien index, not a notice of tax lien index, but a tax lien index. And so the notice of tax lien is registered by the recorder. And it's recorded as a tax lien, not as a notice of tax lien. And the result of that is that it shows on the record as a tax lien instead of a notice. Once that's recorded, the IRS agent asks for a certified true copy of it. And once the IRS agent gets that certified true copy of it, he takes a certified true copy of the tax lien index, which says it's an FTL, or federal tax lien, and not a notice of a federal tax lien. He takes that certified copy of the tax lien index to the sheriff to steal property, to the banker to steal bank accounts, and to the employer to steal paychecks. So the whole process of collection is fraud. And if a person wants to prove that fraud exists, all they have to do is go back to the county recorder's office and have copies brought up of the instrument as they're copied in the recording office. And they can prove that a notice came through the door, but a tax lien index went out the door in a certified form. That is the standard method of the Internal Revenue stealing property from the American public. It's been used for years and years and years. The Internal Revenue Service is not interested in chattel property, which is movable property. The primary interest of the Internal Revenue Service is in real property. But when their agents go in and raid a place and take everything they can get out in sight, the agents get the booty, whatever they get in the raid, if it's an automobile or whatever, they get whatever they want as booty for performing the service for the Internal Revenue Service. So anyway, the Internal Revenue Service then can sell the property to, say, somebody in another country, and when they buy the property, they get automatic opportunity to become a member of this society. So anyway, that pretty well describes what the IRS is all about. It's a matter of theft. And once you bring this up in a court of law, it's a stopper on the IRS. The IRS is not supposed to use the United States District Courts for anything without permission of the Congress, and it has to be in writing on a case-by-case basis. So if somebody's taken to court by the IRS, they can demand to see the writing from the United States Congress giving them permission to use the courtroom. The letterhead on the IRS paperwork says Department of the Treasury. It doesn't say United States Department of the Treasury, and it doesn't say Department of the United States Treasury. It says Department of the Treasury. The reference is made to the Treasury of the Federal Reserve Bank.
Well, if more of us knew what's going on, I would think there would be a revolution by morning. It's closely guarded.
That's the kind of stuff that happens. That's how the IRS operates, and because they operate that way, it discredits everything else they're doing, and it should make it.
Class, the link to Hartford VanDyke's website is on page 1 of USA Prepares. So if you'd like to contact him, the information is right there for you. And Hartford, you mentioned the first U.S. Secretary of Defense, James Vincent Forrestal, and there's a mystery about his death. He allegedly fell from a 16th floor window where he was being treated for quote-unquote depression at the Bethesda Naval Hospital on May 22nd, 1949. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, my father talked to the man that had talked with James Vincent Forrestal. He was Undersecretary of Navy, and that was in 1949?
Yes, May 22nd, 1949 is when he allegedly fell out of a 16th floor window.
Well, my father, as I say, talked to the man, talked with him just the day before that happened. He said he was in the best of spirits. The man wasn't depressed. He was writing a book. Supposedly he had a book written about 3,000 pages long by that time. And he got into subjects that the government did not want published. Stuff about Pearl Harbor, stuff about extraterrestrials, I understand, is another thing that's been brought up recently. That he was aware of things like that. So was the extraterrestrial thing was also known by Truman, and Goldwater and a few other people just down through the years. And there's a whole diplomatic field there that's not being touched because the public's not being fully informed. I'm not going to get into the UFO thing today on this, but he was pitched out of the window. That's basically what happened. He did not commit suicide. They had to bring an end to what he was writing and put a stop to the information. So he knew too much, and he was putting it into print. I think that pretty well summarizes it. I mean, they put me in prison for 7 years and 4 months to try to stop me from publishing a book. But people have got to know that that's exactly one of the reasons why I release things to the public domain. All my writings on politics and philosophy, politics, law, economics, and history of this nature, all of it's released to the public domain. Anybody can take my writings and reproduce them and sell them, and they don't owe me any royalties. If I had to try to keep a copyright, the government would say, well, if we put them in prison and there's a copyright on it, nobody's going to be able to print it on the street. So that's their simplest way of stopping a man, is put him in prison if they don't want his books published. Well, that doesn't work with me. My stuff's all out there. My book, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, went all the way around the world. It's a classic. It's translated into foreign languages all over the world. It's a very simple book, but government doesn't want people to know the truth. It's too bad we've got a de facto government instead of the de jure government, because the de jure government would have the necessary protections, a constitutional government. So Vincent Forrestal just knew too much, and he was willing to talk about it, willing to write about it, and they couldn't tolerate it.
How about General George S. Patton?
I don't know about Patton. Patton was a man that said, "I love war." You know.
Yeah, but he had a Jeep crash, and at the end of World War II, and he ended up dying from that. You know.
Well, they figured that was an assassination too. Yeah.
Hartford, VanDyke.
What would you like to hear next?
Well, I wanted to thank you. We've consumed an hour of broadcast time with very, very valuable information that you hardly would get anyplace else. I can't thank you enough for sharing that with us, and I look forward to broadcasting again and again with you on topics of money, economics, and law, if you would consider doing that. Hartford,
okay.
VanDyke. And,
thank you.
Thank you so much. The link is on page 1 of the website, usaprepares.com.